Today we're going to be talking a little bit about starting new campaigns. I thought that this topic was really appropriate for New Year's, and also because I've been starting a few new campaigns myself. Most notably, I'm DMing on a D&D podcast now. Our group, the Actual Players, just launched the first episode of our sci-fi drama D&D podcast, so go check that out. You can check it out on YouTube, or you can check out the audio-only version on Spotify. I also just recently started my Tuesday night ongoing sandbox game on StartPlaying.games. This is a completely character-driven campaign where I'm building it around the characters as we go. Next week we have our second session, and as of right now we do still have one more seat available, so go check it out. It's every other Tuesday, and this group is just so fantastic. Shout out to all of them. Hey guys. And if you're not free on Tuesdays, I do have the same campaign available on Wednesdays and a few other campaigns throughout the week, so go check all those out. If you want early access to my YouTube content or access to my suggestion box, you can head on over to Patreon. If you're interested in social media marketing, graphic design, Spanish to English translations, and more, you can head on over to Upwork to hire me for any of those things. And if you're interested in D&D minis, you can head on over to my Etsy store where I have D&D minis that I've painted that are available for sale. The links for all of those things are going to be in the description down below. But without further ado, let's talk about starting new campaigns. Whether this is your first campaign or your 100th, what steps do you need to take to start a new campaign? Let's unpack it. Number 1, the obvious step. What's the idea? Before you start anything else, you need to figure out what the tone of your campaign is going to be. Is it dark and gritty, light and heroic, funny and whimsical? And what world does your campaign take place in? Is it your own homebrew setting? Do you have a published module? Or are you adapting some kind of world from movies or TV or books? If you need help with world building, you can go check out my world building videos. But I like to start with all of these decisions usually before I'm even talking to players. And then once you know all of this information, when you're actually asking your players if they're interested in joining your campaign, you have this pitch ready to go where you've already decided on the tone. So number 2, who are the player characters? Player characters are arguably the most important thing about your campaign. They are going to shape everything about it. Their motivations, backstories, and dynamics are everything. So I like to talk to my players ahead of time. I hate the idea of having someone show up to my table and I have no idea what character they're going to play until they describe themselves to everybody. That's like my nightmare. So figure out, who are they playing and how can you tie them into your campaign idea? At this stage, I also like to figure out where every character is from. Okay, you're from a big city. What city is that? This step can be a little overwhelming sometimes because you have to get into the world building and what are all the different options, where could I be from? But once you figure this out, it really helps to ground your characters in the world. And if they know the name of the city that they're from, they care about it, and also you can name drop the name of that city. Step 3, Session 0. The 2 steps that I just listed are things that you could address in a Session 0. I didn't always do Session 0s when I first started out because I thought they were a waste of time. I was just really impatient to get into the actual gameplay and I didn't want to sit around talking about it. But trust me, Session 0 is a huge game changer. It's a great time to address expectations, set boundaries, and make sure that everyone's on the same page. A lot of the D&D problems that I see people having online could be solved by just doing a Session 0. I'm not saying your campaign is doomed if you skip it, but it's definitely worth doing. I could do a whole entire video on Session 0, so let me know in the comments if that's something that you're interested in. Step 4. Plan out the first few levels. In my experience, you should go ahead and plan out the first 2 to 3 sessions of your campaign. Even if you're doing a character-driven sandbox game, go ahead and just railroad your players a little bit to get them started. It's super annoying as a D&D player when you have no idea what to do next. I like to think of these things in terms of the first goal, the first dungeon, the first mystery, whatever it is depending on your campaign. By the time that they finish this dungeon, they solve this mystery, whatever it is, they probably have an idea of where they're headed next. But letting players decide right off the bat what to do doesn't usually go very well. So just railroad them a little bit and then open it up into a sandbox. Or maybe don't. I feel like railroads have their place, but that's a whole other video. Number 5, lay the groundwork for future storylines. During those first few levels that you have all mapped out, give your players a bunch of plot hooks. Lay the groundwork for your future storylines so that once you get through that first bit, they have options. An example, if one player's backstory involves a villain that they want to track down, what is that villain up to? Go ahead and give your players a little bit of a taste. If another player wants to track down some legendary magic item, give them some sort of direction, a place that they have to go, a treasure map. Anything. And if you want to introduce some major threat like a lich, go ahead and seed the fact that they're there. Have people talk about them. Have rumors. And it's even better if you can tie these 3 things together. Maybe the villain from that one character's past happens to be a lich that has the magic item that the other player is looking for. The more that you can take these individual threads and tie them together into common goals, the better. It makes the early part of your campaign feel more connected and meaningful. Number 6, plan the rest of the campaign, but only a little bit. So you've planned your first few sessions and you're laying the groundwork for your campaign. Should you go ahead and plan your campaign all the way to level 20? No, of course not. First of all, most campaigns don't make it to level 20. In my experience, most campaigns only go to about level 9 or so. But second of all, the only way that you can possibly stick to that plan is if you just railroad your players. All aboard, this is where the plot is going. Instead, plan out things like the major villains and key locations of your campaign, but leave room for improvisation and change. That way, as your players inevitably make choices that you don't expect, you can just adapt your plans. Keep everything really loose and nebulous at first, and solidify your plans as the players get closer. And if any of your plans ever rely on the players making a certain choice, you've already fucked up, because I guarantee you that your players will do something crazy and throw you for a loop. Number 7, force the group together if you need to. In the very beginning of a campaign, there's something that you'll notice about different D&D players. And sometimes this is the characters, but I think more often than not, it's the actual players that we're talking about. Some groups, to an almost unrealistic degree, will immediately trust each other. We met 10 minutes ago in this tavern, but we just fought some goblins, so I'm ready to die for you. And that can be a little irksome if you're hoping to have these relationships develop in a meaningful and realistic way. But a bigger problem that I've run into many times are the groups that don't trust each other. Why should I trust you? We just met. And they're right. They might not have a reason to trust each other. But the game depends on them coming together as a group, so you need to give them a reason to. Honestly, I find that gold usually works. You all team up and go get these goblins in the forest, and I'll pay you 100 gold each. Even if it's imaginary money, your players are still very likely to be motivated by that. And if they're not, get creative. Maybe they'll get arrested if they don't team up. I don't know. It's your players and your campaign. But right from the start, you just want to make sure that your group comes together. Number 8, keep the focus on the group at first. D&D is a collaborative group game, and sometimes one character will become the main character of a storyline. Think of Percy in Critical Role. That whole Briarwoods and Whitestone storyline he is very central to. And that's okay, but I find that right in the beginning is the most important time to make sure that you are spreading that spotlight around. You cannot have a main character right in the beginning. 10 plus sessions in, your characters are likely to care about each other, and you need to go to your hometown to do this thing. Of course I'm here to support you. But when they first meet, it's a little harder to get players motivated about each other's storylines. So hold off a little bit on these individual storylines and keep things focused on the group at first. Number 9, establish key NPCs. NPCs are the lifeblood of your campaign world. They're allies, enemies, shopkeepers, and having these NPCs established early on is really important. And this will differ from campaign to campaign. Some campaigns require a major NPC who's there every single session, and some campaigns the closest you'll get to that is a shopkeeper that they see sometimes. But regardless, I like to go ahead and establish them right off the bat. So I'm going to use my own podcast, The Actual Players, as a quick example. If you haven't seen it yet, this isn't going to spoil anything for you, but I highly recommend that you check it out to see what I'm talking about. Right in the first episode, we have Silax, the crooked Imperial agent. We have Nevessa, the criminal boss, and we have the 2 Hadazee that they meet on the ship. All of these characters could and probably will develop into major NPCs throughout the campaign, but I made sure to go ahead and introduce them right in the first episode. Number 10, be patient for that amazing roleplay to happen. When you first start a campaign, everyone is still feeling out their characters and their dynamics. And if you're playing with people you don't already know, you're also feeling out each other's playstyles. And all of this is not very conducive to roleplaying. As a result, roleplay in those early sessions can feel a little rough. Don't worry about it, this is totally normal. Just be patient. You aren't likely to have critical role level roleplaying right in the first session. You'll be lucky if you get it within the first 10 sessions. It takes time to build that chemistry and really settle into the rhythm of your campaign. So just be patient, it'll happen, probably. Which brings me to my bonus tip. It's okay if it doesn't work out. Don't be discouraged if your campaign doesn't hit the ground running. Sometimes campaigns are like lightning in a bottle. Other times you just can't find that spark. Some campaigns take a lot of time to get there, and some campaigns just aren't meant to be. Sometimes you can course correct, and other times you just need to start a new campaign and cut your losses with this one. But that's all I have for you today, so thank you so much for joining me. Tell me in the comments, when's the last time that you started a new campaign, and how did it go? If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notified every time I post a new video. I post new videos every Friday, and I have a lot of ideas for videos that I want to make in 2025. So I'll see you next week. Bye!